A Brief History of ADHD, or Why Didn't I Get Diagnosed When I Was a Kid? Hey friends, ever wonder how ADHD even became a thing in the first place? Like, who decided we have attention deficits or are hyperactive, and why? Today, we're going to zoom through the history of ADHD diagnosis, specifically how it's changed over time in the DSM, which is the book therapists use to name what our brains are doing. And yep, it's a wild ride. So, the DSM, or Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders, is basically the official rule book for diagnosing mental health conditions in the US. Every time a new version comes out, the definition of disorders can change, and that definitely includes ADHD. So let's go back to when it all started. Spoiler alert, ADHD wasn't even called ADHD at first. Before the DSM even existed, doctors noticed kids, usually boys, who had trouble sitting still or focusing. In 1902, a British doctor named George Still described what he called a defect of moral control. Yikes! Bit harsh. Basically, kids who were impulsive or inattentive were seen as disobedient or badly raised, not neurodivergent. When the DSM 1 came out in 1952, ADHD didn't even exist yet by that name, but it did have some cousins: minimal brain dysfunction, organic brain syndromes, and adjustment reactions. Then, in 1968, the DSM-2 came out, and it became, quote, hyperkinetic reaction of childhood, close quote. Try saying that 5 times fast. This was the first time hyperactivity was seen as its own issue, and this was mostly about the physical restlessness. So in 1980, a big change came in the DSM 3. This is where the term attention deficit disorder, or ADD, was officially introduced. And at this point, they split it into with or without hyperactivity. And this was a big deal. For the first time, it wasn't just about being hyper, it was also about focus, impulsivity, and executive function. And in this version, you could have ADD with hyperactivity or without. It separated the attention issues from just being hyper. Now, to be diagnosed in 1980 with the DSM-3, this diagnosis required 3 out of 5 inattention symptoms and 3 out of 5 hyperactivity symptoms. So 7 years later, in 1987, the DSM-3R comes out, and it renames everything again. It drops the ADD, and it calls it all ADHD, and it eliminates the separate subtypes. So this diagnosis requires 8 out of 14 total symptoms to get the diagnosis. So everything is lumped together at this point in one diagnosis. Now in 1994, the DSM-4 comes out. ADHD was split back into subtypes, and it was broken down into 3 presentations. This may sound familiar. Number 1 is the inattentive type. Mostly this is with trouble focusing. Number 2 is the hyperactive impulsive type, and this is what we saw in the past, more of that physical restlessness. And for the first time, we have a combined type, type number 3. The combined type, which is a mix of both inattentive and the hyperactive impulsive. This diagnosis at this point required 6 out of 9 symptoms in each category. And another important thing that happened at this point is the first time an age requirement was added. So the requirement is you have to have symptoms appear before the age of 7, which means that you have to have seen some of this before the age of 7. In 2000, the DSM-4 TR comes out. It basically is minor text revisions, but it kept the same diagnostic criteria. So the next big change comes in 2013. So we haven't had any significant changes since 1994 when the DSM-4 came out. So in 2013, or 19 years later, the DSM-5 comes out. And ADHD officially becomes a, quote, neurodevelopmental disorder, close quote. That is a big shift from our old labels of, quote, bad behavior. This diagnosis did a lot of significant things. Number one, it raised the age of onset of symptoms from before age 7 to before age 12. Number two, it also allowed symptoms to be diagnosed later in life and not just kids. Now, think about it. I'm recording this in 2025. That was 12 years ago, was the first time the DSM said that ADHD can be diagnosed later in life. And this is good news for adults in so many ways, obviously. But one thing this did, it adjusted the symptom criteria for adults so that more people actually qualified for a diagnosis. Kids still needed 6 out of 9 symptoms, but with adults, it required 5 out of 9 of the symptoms to get the diagnosis. It also presented some examples of how symptoms appeared in adults and adolescents, which can be markedly different from how it appears in kids. It also added language that acknowledged ADHD can look different depending on your environment. Like you can be messy at home, but you can be totally fine at work, or vice versa. So the last DSM that has been released was the DSM-5 TR, which was released in 2022. This didn't make huge changes to ADHD, but it refined the language. It tried to be more inclusive in how symptoms show up in different cultures and genders. Even today, a lot of people get misdiagnosed or diagnosed late. This is for a variety of reasons, but remember, these new criteria are only 12 years old. And a lot of physicians trained in the days of the DSM-4. We're still playing catch up with a lot of people right now, especially women and people of color. So, where are we now? ADHD is not just a kid thing or a boy thing or a hyper thing. This is a real neurological brain difference that shows up in all kinds of ways. And the DSM is still evolving to catch up with us. Thanks for being here, friends. If this video helped you feel a little more seen, or if Lucky kept you company sleeping while I rambled, hit that like button and subscribe for more ADHD and anxiety-friendly content. Until next time, remember, your brain is not broken. It's just wired differently, and that's okay.